being human with you. Together we can find a way. Being human, together we can find a way. Being human, beyond belief from this day. One voice rise and we can stand.
Welcome to Being Human with You, episode 10. We are into double figures, and we're into double figures, as you may have noticed, with a brand new intro. I feel there will be more to develop in it over time, but the song Being Human is written explicitly, exclusively for this podcast. And when you listen to the full song, lyrically it represents some of the challenges that we face and what it is to be human. Very much the shared breath of life that we all experience. So I'm going to be talking today particularly and sharing with you and looking for you to join me in this discussion on the thought of aspiration and inspiration. And also I'm going to share details of where I'm aiming personally to share aspiration, affirmation, inspiration, uplifting, engaging, encouraging content, both musically, both discussion based, books in the future. Where's it going to be available primarily? I'll share a little bit more about that later. I get a strong feeling I'm probably going to play the introduction again at some point. I really do like it. There's an interesting graphic. This was all created of me, a clean-shaven me. It's unusual for me to see me without a beard. You may have spotted that at the conclusion of the intro. I've got a feeling there's going to be more people in there. There's going to be more images of communication and humanity. So I think watch this space because the introduction will be growing. My goodness me, Mark Walker, wow. We've worked together on a number of collaborations musically and the guitar solo. I actually said to Mark as we were finishing the recording of the song Being Human, I already know which section of this is going to be predominantly the introduction, and that's the guitar solo. Listen to the whole song. Let me know what you think, and I'll share more later, as I've already mentioned, whatever that means, about where you can find the single Being Human. Aspiration. Let's begin there. Ambition, I guess you could say. Aiming for goals. Desiring more. Why is it, and I know the answers why, and I'm going to try not to talk too much about that aspiration in many cases, and for a lot of people, is viewed negatively. And the answer that I give to that is because I feel it doesn't work for the system. So the system as it's promoted is very much about subjugation. It's about being under control, not being in control, not having your own autonomy, your own sovereignty. And that's a message that I've shared regularly and will continue to. So we have, don't we, phrases that creep into the social consciousness that don't get above your station, don't get above yourself, too big for your own boots. When we think of ego, very much that's viewed as a negative thing. that people who perhaps want to share, promote, reach more people, they're egotistical. Ambition becomes a negative thing. People share it like that person will tread on others to get to where they want to get to. Now, of course, in encouraging, promoting aspiration, I'm not promoting do it regardless of others. But at times, if we have purpose, if we have aims in our life, there are elements of we have to be single-minded. And I'm challenging the consideration that that is viewed as a negative thing. Now, why is it? The only answer I can come to, maybe you might shed some light on this yourselves. I say maybe, because I'm not assuming that and presuming that you will. You definitely can, and I definitely love you to. But it is very much part of what has become generationally fed. It has become almost like a dripping torture of limitation, of less, of you can't talk too much about what it is that you want to do. And I go back to why. Why is that the case? If you have things you want to share, why wouldn't you share them? If you desire for the improvement of the lives of others, why would you not share that? From a human point of view. So what I feel would work for all of us better is less belief system in that regard. And what I mean by that is rather than it is only the ownership of religious organisations, political parties, mainstream media ways of being, academic thoughts, science. Success really comes from us aspiring to be the fullest version of ourselves. It's true, not everybody can necessarily be a David Bowie or a John Lennon. I'm just going to the side slightly. My attention's taken by some imagery from videos that I've created that have included music in relation to the couple of energy sources that I've just mentioned. And I'm going to refer to them in that way. Energy sources. My attention is actually caught by a couple of other energy sources in videos I've created in the past. Elton John. Monty Python. We've gone completely different direction. Robin Williams. A video that we'll play out with The Shawshank Redemption. And Springsteen. I'm seeing a video I created, Bruce Springsteen. But let's return back to Bowie and John Lennon. They were their own people, yes. They used that for creative means, but not for themselves only. A lot of what was shared was to challenge, to question the mainstream mindset. And I would suggest not only, but particularly John Lennon, acquiring the kind of aspiration that it is that I'm talking about. I remember somebody saying to me, I've done a version of this already, by the way, and there was something I just wasn't feeling the energy. I am now. I'm feeling it more now. And funny enough, I didn't say this. So often when I press record, I don't exactly know where this is going to go. And I love that. I really genuinely do. Because then I'm not trying to stifle this by preconditioned thinking. It's not, this is the way that it's spoken. And somebody who was a creative friend at the time, I'm not criticising them at all. We were watching a live performance, and performances. It was effectively an open mic. And they said to me, of this particular group, I think it was time for us to go on soon, and this group had performed, and said to me, Doesn't it make you feel you're not good enough after listening to them? So just imagine that moment. The person was asking me the question, watching them, does it make you feel you're not good enough? And I had to think for a moment, only a moment, because I said, and this is where people might think this is arrogant, I 100% categorically refute that. I said, no, it doesn't make me think I'm not as good as them. It makes me think I'm not as good as them in certain areas. There are certain things they're better at than I am, but it doesn't make me think I'm not as good as them or not good enough. Does it make you think you're not good enough? That might have been the more accurate reference. Can you see that's an example of limited mindset? And we are surrounded by it, which is not a criticism. I genuinely, hand on heart, now say, I'm not criticizing people for that at all, because it is systemically inbuilt. It's indoctrinated. That almost in a way you have to do that. If you don't do that, you are then arrogant, egotistical, Billy Big bollocks. You are above your station. You are too big for your own boots. Those type of phrases that have crept into the consciousness. Because all they are, a strong statement now, is control mechanisms. A way to keep people in their place. That's what a lot of societal conditioning is. Whether it's religious, political, mass media, education, it's all to limit. Now, I feel it's really important, and I think this is going to be a continuation, to talk about aspiration and inspiration. Because the fuller lives that we lead, it's coming to me now from the website, which I am going to be working on in time. Henry David Thoreau, one of my favourite quotes of all time. It's a partial quote. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to their grave with their song still in them. My decision quite a while ago was not me. And I've broken through that one big time already. I've succeeded. I've achieved. Purely by the numbers. I haven't just got one song, I've got tons of songs. But then you go to a different place. So that's fine, that's great. And those who know me and know the experiences I've been through in life would understand even more the achievement that I've achieved as regards of purely and simply releasing music, writing songs and releasing songs. Purely and simply by doing that achievement. Now it's going a step further and has gone a step further for a period of time, which is I want to play a part in enabling others to enable themselves. Self-empowerment is what it's all about. I can say things that potentially could empower people, but I'm not looking for me to be the means exclusively of empowerment. Otherwise, people are always going to need me. It's the thoughts. It's them empowering themselves. That's what it's moved into now. Because the way I look at that is, isn't it evidentially undeniable that society is going to be better? Because we're going to have fuller, broader, more expansive mindset individuals, rather than playing into the narrative of keep it small. Don't get too big for your own boots. Now, I understand that with pure arrogance, abusive arrogance, people who disregard, and they are in positions of perceived power. Politicians, many celebrities, and people in positions of religious oversight, those in positions of academic education, They have the means to lord it over others, and in many cases they do, to the detriment of others. That needs to be spoken about, and I've written albums around subjects around that thought. We need to move away from that and create this stronger autonomy. There are leaders, people called leaders. They're not leading. They're not. That's not political. That's not anti-religious. That's not anti-education. That's not against mass media. That's fact. That's fact. That's not conspiracy theory. That's fact. And we can do so much more. And here's another thought. I did have this earlier, which is, if we're comfortable, content, we feel we've at a point where I'm really happy as I am, fine. Don't measure others if that is the case, because this is something I see a lot of, which is why I'm talking about it. Where when somebody does, say for example, try to do something I'm doing, which is reaching more people, I'm putting no limit on this. Thousands, great, that's wonderful. Millions, excellent. With the purpose of being more human and promoting that, rather than that separatist, segregation, divisive way of being. And why is it promoted so much? Because it keeps people apart. It separates people. Find ways, all of us, to bring people together in being more human. If somebody said to me, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm gonna do this, not just I want to, I'm going to. This is what I'm going to do. And it's to improve their life and improve the life of others, the lives of others. I would 100% back that person completely in whatever way I could. Certainly vocally, I would not say, well, you know what, the amount of people that reach out to become an actor, it's a tough place to be, it's difficult. It's a real dog-eat-dog way of being. You don't get your hopes up too much. You might be disappointed. That would be the worst thing I could imagine. And if anybody did that to me, I would now, it's a different me to what it used to be, I would now 100% call that out. I wouldn't accept that. And here's the simple truth why I wouldn't. The opportunities exist. The person has the desire to achieve that opportunity. They have the aspirational thought. Even better if they now start talking about how they're going to achieve that. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Why? They want to do it because they want to affect more around thoughts of whatever the subject might be. I'm genuinely feeling tingles in that thought. I'm now hearing aspiration and inspiration from that imaginary human being. And I've seen it, and I love it when people talk up. Not as in some kind of elite ladder of success that you're climbing, but just as in developing, improving. And I don't want to be any other way. And I love being that way. And I love other people being that way. When people talk positively of themselves in driver training, one of the questions that I often ask professionally, as part of the training I do, amazing company, Drivers Domain UK. There's a shout out to Drivers Domain UK. Is, in your driving, what are you excellent at? What do you consider you excel in? Most people find that question difficult to answer. Why? Because they're trained to think less about themselves. Fact. So let's buck that trend. Substitute for the word buck, another rhyming word if you like. Let's buck that trend. That's what being human with you is about. Now, with the brand new intro. I think it's time to listen again. Spot that cleanly shaven Ray at the end. I do feel this introduction will grow, but let's go in again. The song is Being Human. I'll talk in a moment about where you can exclusively find the single and where we're journeying to in the future with aspiration, inspiration, affirmation, uplifting, upbuilding, elevating, encouraging content. We'll rejoin in a moment. Drop in the comments your thoughts. Let me know about the intro, any suggestions for improvement. Let's celebrate, not perfection, let's celebrate progress, being human.
Being human with you. Together we can find a way. Being human, together we can find a way. Being human, beyond belief from this day. One voice rise and we can stand.
There we are again. There we are. Together we can find a way. I think of 3 songs that, in no particular order, let me try and put them in order. If I Can Dream, Elvis Presley. Imagine, John Lennon. Don't Dream It's Over, Crowded House. Those songs represent for me, and we could think of many others, Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel. Very hope-filled messages. Messages of aspiration, elevation, improvement. Not giving up on that dream, that possibility, that imagined thought that things could elevate, develop, improve from where they are, whether that's personally or whether that's with our entire human family. And people make it sound negative. Oh, you're a bit of a dreamer. Well, that's the beginning of things changing. As opposed to just thinking it is how it is. Certain circumstances we have to accept in life, but where there's hope, there's always the opportunity for change. That's what this is. That's what I'm encouraging others towards. And I'd love your thoughts on that. How can we get aspiration more into day-to-day conversation? Without feeling like we're trying to destroy people for thinking small, feeling inadequate, because that's been conditioned, that's been around a long time. How can we gently infuse more into the human consciousness aspiration? I sat with a gentleman who was part of social reform in the area of Blackpool, and he was an influencer and had been part of having been given funding. And the way he spoke was so, I found it really depressing, to be honest with you. Now, I've seen the opposite of that same place. I've seen people speak so highly of the possibility, the potential, the capacity. That's far, far better, because otherwise what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing. We must begin to, again, buck the trend of this downtrodden way of being. You can't think too highly of things. You're just going to get disappointed. I do understand that. I do. But why don't we just try it the other way around? John Lennon said, give peace a chance. All we're saying. He actually said, I'm not saying I've got the answers, but why don't we try? Rather than, is the way it is. That's the way it's going to be. So, where is all this going to happen? Sometimes people ask me, I've had those people who troll and try to rip holes in what you're endeavouring to do. I'm not saying I've got the answers. I'm definitely saying that encouraging individuals to aspire to more is a better way of being. So the politicians generally are not helping, and they won't. The religious leaders question that one 100%. I'm not saying don't have belief. I'm not anti-God. I'm not anti-faith, not anti-belief. But I think we need to find a more human-centric ground to share together, which ironically is what planet Earth is, a place for us to live together. So finding ways to do that more and moving aside, not eliminating necessarily. I don't think John Lennon was promoting that. Imagine no religion. More the dogma, more the entrenched, disgusting treatment of other human beings because you have a belief. So that definitely needs to change. So where are you going to find this? More. Musically. Books. Where are you going to find it? Well, there's a simple answer to that because it's somewhere where I'm sharing more of the sonic side of me and what I'm creating, and not just me, others as well, is Bandcamp. I've watched a couple of videos recently, and one in particular, Kate Nash, in an interview, well-known musician, artist, talks about the challenges of Spotify, iTunes, blah, 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 etc. For an artist of her size, with her audience. So she started a fans-only page and was commended for this in the interview. Can't remember who did the interview, but it was really, really thought-provoking. So then I started thinking, of course, well, I've got a certain growing audience. Yes, thank you. And thank you to those that have come over to Bandcamp to download the albums. I'm going to be sharing more there. I'm not saying I'm going to not be sharing in other places, but not as much. Some is going to be exclusively there. So come over there, take a look, because I want to create an alternate to what is the mainstream. I've got nothing against releasing music all over the world and available in as many different formats as possible, because I desire for that to reach as many people as possible. The messages that are being shared, I'm not going to try and make that smaller than it is or bigger than it is. I want to reach more people because I feel this is something that is missing, which is a very human-centric message. It's not left, it's not right, it's not black, it's not white. It's not trying to be young, old. It's not trying to be part of, only men, only women. It's human beings. We share that in common. I don't see that being shared as explicitly in many places. So where you're going to find it, not only, but exclusively, Bandcamp. So being human is there. The theme tune to this podcast now is there. You will find Being Human there. £1.50, I think it is. Download. Encourage others to do likewise. Because then we begin to then expand more. I can expand on my own I can expand even more with you. Fact. Comment. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings. At the end of this year, the book is coming. I'm not going to say any more about that at the moment. There's a previous creation that was created with an incredible, astonishing, deeply traumatic, one of the most traumatic life experiences I've ever known, of a man called John Cheetham. And I worked with John for a good couple of years. We were very close to the footsteps of John's life moving towards a Netflix documentary. It hasn't quite worked out yet, but myself and John have talked about the songs we created about John's life, what he went through. His book, Fall Guy, is already released. You're going to find that in Bandcamp. Do you get the idea of where I'm coming from? Because yes, I have this view still, I do, of everywhere. But come and join us over there, because at the moment, that's where you're going to find it exclusively. Because I believe things like John's life and what the message I'm sharing and others, I feel this has a place in the mainstream 100%. To some degree, I'm there now, here in YouTube. The music, as I've already said, is released all over, and you will find it everywhere. But the mainstream doesn't support it, because what it wants is that lesser than, that subjugate way of being, because it's a control mechanism. Be with us. Be with us in that space. And particularly, but not only, but exclusively in certain things, Bandcamp. I'll put the link in the description. If you search in Bandcamp Ray Coates, you will find me. Yes, you'll also find Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube. I've also got the podcast that goes into Spotify as an audio. TikTok, Instagram. I've now got a link tree in most of my profiles and bios, because looking to connect with more human beings. There may be interviews, discussions in the future. At the moment, it's me and it's you, and it will continue to be that way. So I'd love to know, as a conclusion, what can we do from this day on? How can we begin to affect change? Us, not politicians, not religious leaders, not people who are, there in the mainstream media, not those people, not Piers Morgan, not Russell Brand, not Ricky Gervais, not whoever it might be. But how can we get a voice out on behalf of the common human race that brings us together, that brings us into a place of amplifying rather than diminishing? How can we do that? How can we build greater aspiration, more inspiration, exciting elevation? How can we do that? The concluding track from the album Inside of Me that was released November 2025 during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but not exclusively for Men's Mental Health Awareness. Inside of Me was the album, and the last track was From This Day On. I'll continue to share loads of Being Human content, past, present, future. Check out the most recent episode. We're now having one episode of Being Human a week. Let me know in the comments about aspiration. Let's continue to talk about how can we rise as opposed to keep pulling down and destroying individually. How can we do that? Listen to the last track. You'll also find it available on Bandcamp. Go over there, download the album. That would be absolutely incredible. The album Oversoul the Reform is talking about societal reform, not politics, but us as human beings. How can we affect change rather than trusting in those who, in many cases, a majority of cases, are looking at their own corrupt ends? How can we change that? What can we do? What can we do from this day on? Wonderful to be with you. Keep being the amazing human being that you are. Let me know in the comments, aspiration, inspiration, elevation. What can we talk about? Subject matter that will form being human with you. Look forward to next time. Take care. Until then, bye-bye. From this day on, I sign off these songs, authentically yours. Forgetful thief, what did you achieve by gaining opinion at the doors? From this day on, if I ever bleed again, I'll bleed in my own time. Thank you. From this day on, I'll share inside of me the voice within so true. From this day on, has begun. From this day on, has begun. From this day on, I belong. From this day on, the reflection in the mirror of me is no longer formed by your deceit. From this day on, whatever my name, I owe my life, and I've got the receipt. From this day on, father, mother, sisters, others, it's time for me to begin. From this day on, if you want to destroy me, then cast the first stone if you're without sin. From this day on, has begun. From this day on, has begun. From this day on, I belong. From this day on, no more the easy enemy. From this day on, from this day on, I sign off authentically yours. Every one of these songs. From this day on, has begun. I've murdered the past at last. From this day on, not living in the past. The future is mine to hold fast. From this day on, from this day on, from this day on, from this day on, has begun. We belong. The future is ours to hold fast. From this day, from this day, from this day on. Okay, Mark, that's that. What's next?